In 2014, a mother living in a DC homeless shelter made a decision that would haunt the city forever. She allowed her 8-year-old daughter, Relisha Rudd, to leave the shelter alone with 51-year-old janitor Khalil Tatum, who had spent more than 15 years in prison. He promised to bring the little girl back, but he never did. Weeks slipped by, and no one sounded the alarm, not even her own mother. And by the time police got involved, it was already too late. Hotel surveillance captured chilling footage, the little girl alone with the janitor walking through the dark hallway of a hotel known for drugs and prostitution. No mother, no family, just an innocent 8-year-old and a predator. Days later, a body turned up. It was the janitor's wife, shot dead in a motel room that he and his wife had rented together. Then, the janitor himself, found lifeless in a park under suspicion that he had taken his own life. And bright eyed Relisha vanished without a trace, leaving an entire city left to wonder, where is Relisha Rudd? Join me this afternoon at 12 p.m. Central as I speak to the founders of the Black and Missing Foundation about their upcoming docuseries, The Vanishing of Relisha Rudd, which is set to release this Wednesday, October 29th, on their YouTube channel. In this interview, we discuss the importance of their organization and the details surrounding Relisha's disappearance. We also talk about how they are bridging the gap between police, the media, and the missing. This is definitely an interview and a docuseries you don't want to miss. Today in studio, I have the founders of the Black and Missing Foundation joining me in studio to talk about their upcoming docuseries, The Vanishing of Relisha Rudd. Miss Derica and Natalie, thank you both for being here today. I want to start off by just sharing my appreciation for you taking the time out to meet with me and discuss this docuseries. I know the case of Relisha Rudd has been something that has haunted the city for many, many years, and I'm so grateful that you both have put this project together to get more eyes on her stories and stories so much like hers.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Now, can you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us about the Black and Missing Foundation and how you guys got started and why a foundation like this is needed?
Okay, so I can kick it off. I'm Natalie Wilson, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Black and Missing Foundation. And we started the organization because of a need. There was a young lady by the name of Tamika Houston who went missing from Derica's hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we read how her family, particularly her aunt, who's in media relations, really struggled to get national media coverage for her beautiful niece. And when we heard that, we were so angry about it. A year after Tamika disappeared, Natalie Holloway vanished. And just saying her name alone, everyone knows her name pretty much and her story. So Derica and I did some research, and at the time we found that 30% of all persons missing were of color, and their families were really experiencing what Tamika's aunt Rebecca experienced: silence when they reached out to, whether it's local or national media outlets for coverage. So Derica and I said, let's do some research. And as I mentioned, 30% of all persons missing were of color at that time. And we said, let's jump in. I'm in media relations. We need that visibility. Derica is in law enforcement. We need those law enforcement resources and boots on the ground to get our community engaged to help us find us. And the reason we keep going is because the numbers are growing. 40% of all persons missing are of color. Right? So we started with 30%, we're now at 40, and it's growing. And families are desperately searching for their missing loved ones. And many times we are their last resort. And we just don't say that. They have told us that. They're not getting the media coverage, law enforcement doesn't care, and the community doesn't know. So we are here to bring visibility to these cases, because visibility equals justice or the person being found.
So the key word is reported. We receive our statistics every year from the FBI. And when we get that report, and if anyone looks at that report, they will see that the Hispanic community, they are categorized with the white community, although 24% identify as Afro-Latina. And I want to go back a step further. When families report their loved ones missing to law enforcement and they get a case number, that the family think that's all that they need from law enforcement to say that they've taken the case. But law enforcement then have to put that information into NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center. That is the database that the FBI manages, and that's where the statistics come from. So we know in many cases with the families that we're working with that sometimes their cases are not entered into NCIC. Therefore, that 40% that we see right now may not be representing everybody holistically. And we know that.
Wow, that's important information because as we see in the media, there's numbers that are high already, and to know that this background information it makes the numbers seem even more off. So tell us why, when you all got started, did you think that this was the impact that you would be making on the world? Did you think that this many people were in need of your help?
Well, we already knew the numbers were a bit high. And we said when we first started the organization, if we can help one person, to be found, we have done our jobs. But we continue because the need is so great around the country. This is a pandemic that is affecting our communities. And we're happy to say that we've been able to find or at least provide answers to over 500 cases. But it's getting worse. Not going to sugarcoat it at all. It is getting worse. We're seeing too many of our young boys and girls disappearing because of sex trafficking or mental health issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, or domestic violence. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on as a community, and we can no longer turn a blind eye to this issue.
And I just want to add really quick, something that Natalie and I always talked about in the very beginning is that in order to correct a problem in your community, you must be willing to be the solution. And going back to my background in law enforcement, Natalie's background in media public relations, those are the two critical professions needed in helping and finding our missing, family members or people in our community. Because we want the community, we want everyone to know that this is a human rights issue, regardless of race, gender, and zip code. Everyone with a missing loved one deserves equal resources from law enforcement and from the media.
Mm-hmm. And can I just add really quickly, when going back to when we started the organization, we had one mission, and that is to make sure that our missing are household names too, because we can name the Natalie Holloways, the Jennifer Wilborn, or Wilbrook, the John Benet Ramsey. We can name all of these individuals. But when you ask someone to name someone who's missing from their community of color, they can't. But now they can. And we're getting more media coverage, right? We're getting more law enforcement resources because of that media coverage. So I think that as advocates, and that's what we are, we're advocating for a voiceless group, that we have done a great job. And we are really the thought leaders in this space. And that was intentional.
That's amazing. I really appreciate and love the way that you all are bridging the gap between law enforcement, the media, and the missing. You are making a huge impact in these cases and in our community. Can you guys tell me about Relisha? Tell me what drew your foundation to her story specifically for this docuseries.
Relisha is DC's baby. She went missing in 2014 from a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C. And I remember seeing the video once we became involved in this case. One of our board members at the time, Diane Grooms, was the deputy police chief. She brought us into the fold to help amplify the story, but also to help search for Relisha. And I remember the video that continues to play in the general public of the day anyone last saw her, and she was walking down this dark hallway with this janitor, and that was the last sighting of Relisha. She hasn't been seen since. But at this point, nearly 12 years later, We all deserve answers. We need to know what happened to Relisha. We need to know where she is, and we need justice to be served for whoever's responsible for her disappearance.
So, how involved was Relisha's family in this production?
Some of her family members were involved and they lent their voice to it, like her stepfather, Antonio, her grandmother, Melissa. But we also have, investigators who are intimately or were intimately involved with this case. They have inside knowledge that none of us do. We have media personalities who covered her case and they lent their voice to it. But to, go back a bit to the question that you asked, why are we telling this story now? As time goes on, people forget about cases. And sometimes people think that Relisha has been found. No, she hasn't. She's still missing. So as she approaches her 20th birthday, this is the right time to tell her story. And we hope that someone will see it, it will jog their memory, and they can provide a tip that can help find her. We just need one piece of information, and someone, whether they were at the shelter or they knew Tatum, the man that she was last seen with, they can help find her and bring her home.
Hope after so much time has passed, do you feel like there's still hope for answers in her case?
We would never give up on hope. We have seen miracles happen, with cases of individuals that may have been missing for an exceptional period of time or extended period of time. So that's one thing about the Black and Missing Foundation. We lead with hope, and we want families and we want the community to remain hopeful.
What does justice look like in a case like this?
Justice looks like, what happened? Let's find out what truly happened to Relisha. If this happened, if she disappeared, what else did these monsters do? Are there other Relishas out there? So again, it's getting the answers as to what happened to Relisha. Now it's up to law enforcement and the judicial system to decide what the punishment would be based on the perpetrator and the crime. But our job is to ensure that she is found, or at least there are answers as to what happened to her.
And when you guys think about the little girl Relisha was and the young woman she could be today, what do you see? What do you picture Relisha being like?
Well, I go back to that little sweet face when Relisha went missing, and Relisha looked like my daughter. She looked like my nieces. She looked like my granddaughter. And to see the evolution of her, approaching 20, being in college, leading her whole life ahead of her. That is what I see, a beautiful little Black girl who has morphed into this beautiful young woman. And I definitely want to keep that image in my mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, aside from raising awareness, what impact do you hope this docuseries will have on how Black and missing children cases are handled?
Well, I think we need to start with, it that home living at that homeless shelter, they were all so vulnerable, right? And that's who pimps and pedophiles prey on, those that are most vulnerable. So this is an opportunity to really peel back the layers and have better laws or protection in place for those individuals who need or are looking for the same things that we are, like housing, love, security, safety. And all of that was taken away from Relisha and her family because they lived at the shelter. And as a society, we tend to look at these people as the bottom of, society. They're not. They are, and we say this all the time, they are our mothers, our fathers, our neighbors, and we need to lead with empathy and sympathy and love for them. And it's an opportunity for us to pull each other up.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, what role can everyday people play in helping to find missing individuals?
We encourage our community to be vigilant. We put out flyers every day online, and we certainly encourage them to be our digital milk carton. Share these flyers. We understand that not every case is going to make the 5 and 10 o'clock news cycle. We know that every case is not going to amplify to mainstream media, but just utilizing your platform to put information out there, because we know that someone out there knows something, and just sharing that information, spreading the awareness goes a long way. I mean, we utilize social media to bring answers and reunions to so many families, because we see that it's vital. That is like one of the low hanging fruit. I'm sure Natalie's going to chime in, but the other point that I want to make from a community perspective as it relates to law enforcement is to also check in with your local police departments and ask those questions about their missing person investigations. For example, do you utilize the classification runaway? If so, why? Do families have to wait 24 hours before reporting a loved one missing? If so, why? How long does it take for a detective to be assigned to the case if someone is reported missing? How long does it take for those cases to be entered into NCIC? So just being able to educate our community on some of the basic information in dealing with law enforcement to really understand the totality of this, that right there is golden. We want to be proactive versus reactive all the time. So that is something that our community members can do.
Absolutely.
Yes, we can all do something, right? If you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, you're typically the first line when it comes to seeing a child that's being abused or sex trafficked. And don't turn a blind eye again to this issue. And that's what we're seeing. People are like, well, I don't want to get involved. Well, you have to get involved,
Yes.
right? If you see something wrong with your neighbor's child, speak up. We see so many pregnant teens, pregnant 12 and 13-year-old, and we place the blame on the child. And I think it's misplaced, right?
Yes.
A child cannot consent to sex. A child, I hear the term all the time, child prostitution. A child cannot be in prostitution, right? We have to hold the adult accountable and stop victimizing the child. In our community, we tend to adultify our children. She's a fast, you know what? She deserves that. Or we call our boys thugs and criminals. No, let's change the narrative. Let's change the mindset in our community, and don't wait until your loved one goes missing, then you want help. Well, let's spring into action to help those who family members are missing. Remember, we're meeting them at the lowest point in their lives, and they don't know what to do, and we're holding their hands through the process. And sometimes we need our community to get involved. Derek and I cannot be the only ones concerned about this issue and ready to jump in. This is a huge task, a labor of love that we're taking on, but we need our community to get involved too.
Absolutely. Now, my last question for you both is, how can people get involved besides donations, volunteering, or just showing up, sharing flyers? How can people get involved and support the Black and Missing Foundation?
Well, we're implementing, satellite offices, boots on the ground. If someone is missing, many times we want to go out and help search for them with something simple like distributing flyers. But, again, we're a national organization. So if you're in Atlanta or Detroit, Chicago, wherever you may be, Houston, we want to be able to, connect with you to help us. Again, I can't say it enough. We cannot do this work alone. So if you have a profession and you can help us out, we really need help and support for these families.
Yes, and encourage all of your viewers out there to visit our website at bamfi.org. And in the top where it says join our community, that's where you can join, put your information in. As Natalie mentioned, this is what we're looking to do with satellite offices around the country and having our street teams to be able to be boots on the ground. So we want to hear from you. And we want you to stay informed from us as well. So not only are we trying to receive your information, but if you want to stay in the know of what we have going on, we certainly encourage you to join the community and sign up for our newsletter as well.
And let me just add one more thing, Chris. You know, sometimes we think big picture, right? Do you know who's missing from your community? Let's start there before you think nationally. Who's missing from your neighborhood? And help amplify that person's disappearance. You know, you can help bring them home. So just start small and then you can grow.
Yeah, start in your own backyard. That's great advice. And I can't think of a better organization to be involved in. Doesn't always take money, just effort sometimes. And I think you ladies made a great point when you said, start in your community. So many people are walking past vulnerable young women and children that they don't even know this person could have been snatched off the street or can be missing from their family for months and weeks and years, and you're just passing right on by and not even noticing them. So that's great advice. I want to thank you both for being here today. As you guys heard, there are many ways that you can get involved, starting by dropping by their website. If you see a Black and Missing Foundation flyer, share it. If you don't know who's missing in your community, get out there, ask those questions, and be vigilant. Derica and Miss Natalie, I want to thank you both for being here. Thank you for the work you do in the community and everything that you do all over the world. I'm looking forward to partnering with you guys in the future and trying to get some of these missing people home to their families.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.